Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. Here, that is the Monday, March 18th episode of the show, as we're about halfway through the month of March. Incredible to see where we're at in this time of the year. You know, the sun is out. I do know it's supposed to be pretty bad this upcoming week, though, so I'll take advantage of that while we've got it for this nice weekend. Supposed to be a nice weekend, but the teams that were playing, especially the ones outside, didn't necessarily get off to a great start. We'll talk a little bit about that, primarily looking at the Sounders and their continued struggles when it comes to scoring and continuing to score outside of the one goal that they got. The Seahawks were active, but not as active as some wanted to begin free agency, and we'll look into that as it's the first topic of the show, amongst other things, as the Mariners also approach their opening day, and they have an event this upcoming weekend for fans to check out at the opening week warm-up at T-Mobile Park, so you can see some of the future faces of the franchise as well as some of the legends as well before the team gets back here to Seattle to return from Peoria. So, as I mentioned, we'll start with our Seahawks, as we always tend to do. We look at free agency, and as I mentioned, free agency technically starts on March 13th, but there's this window from the 11th to the 13th where deals can be made. Teams can talk to players. They don't really go into full effect with the new league year, though, until March 13th. So it was very interesting, because some thought with some of the moves that were made. We talked about the cuts last week with Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams, Will Dissly, Brian Monet was cut. Freed up a good amount of cap space. Some players had restructured their contracts. We talked about Geno Smith. We've talked about Tyler Lockett. Opening up more cap space, so you say, oh, Seattle's going to go out and start going to spend some money, maybe bring in some of the former Ravens that Mike McDonald had coached on their Baltimore defense, a guy like Patrick Queen, Geno Stone. There was a lot of optimism going into free agency, we'll say, with Seattle and this upcoming class, and that didn't necessarily materialize. Seattle really hasn't signed a big name free agent, largely going into a few of the players that were their type priority, which we'll talk about here in a second. And we'll start with the returning names, actually. We'll do that. And not necessarily talking about that top priority just yet, but we'll start with kind of a fun one as the team went and brought back offensive tackle George Fant. Now, if you remember Fant, he came into the league as a project. He had played college basketball primarily during his time at university and only played 2 football games during his time before the NFL, came into the league undrafted. He went with Seattle. They liked his progression, and he has been in the NFL ever since. He didn't stay with Seattle as full time. Last year, he was with the Texans on a 1-year deal. He's now 31 years old. He signs a 2-year deal with Seattle. He'll largely provide a backup position for the team at the tackle spots, whether it's, Abe Lucas missing 11 games last year and Seattle rotating guys like Jake Curran, Stone Forsythe, and Jason Peters at that position, trying to find some consistency through 11 games. They weren't able to do that. Last year, he played primarily on the right side for the Texans, registering 833 snaps there, ranking 35th among qualifying offensive tackles at either left or right in pass block win rate. So, yeah, it's nothing really more than an insurance there at the tackle position. Again, he broke into the NFL as an undrafted rookie with Seattle back in 2016, playing extensively on both sides of the offensive line, so he really could continue to fill that swing tackle role. So it'll be really interesting to see what the details of his contract are. He last played, as I mentioned, on that 1-year deal. It was a $3 million deal with the Texans, $800,000 of that guaranteed. It would be interesting. I don't doubt that it's something similar to that deal that Seattle signed him to, considering if he's going to be a swing tackle for them. But it's nice for them to be able to get some reliability there at the depth position for the tackle spot. mainly because if we look back to some comments made previously by former coach Pete Carroll, at one point he referred to Abe Lucas's knee injury as chronic, which implies it may not be completely behind him, even though he did have right knee surgery earlier this current offseason. So you're kind of wondering what the deal might be there. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the depth pieces that Seattle had in terms of offensive line would be back, including Stone Forsythe, who's going to be on the last year of his rookie deal. Guys like Raekwon O'Neal, McClendon Curtis as well, who came back as exclusive rights free agents to close up things at the offensive tackle position. The other big one was obviously, the big one was Leonard Williams. There was a lot of concern to see if he would come back or not. Seattle had traded a second-round pick for him. Notably, he's a big deal just because of that, because of the impact he made. He wasn't, playing the defensive line, it's not a glamorous position. You're not going to get a lot of highlights or big notice. But Williams played a solid role with Seattle. Both Carroll liked him when he was here. John Schneider has said he liked him and stated early into this offseason he was definitely a priority. And they're able to sign him to a 3-year, $64.5 million deal with $43.85 million of that guaranteed. So, yeah, they gave up a second-round pick to get him from the Giants, who also got a 2025 fifth-rounder, and also uniquely paid most of the remaining $10 million that he was owed for this past season. Losing him in free agency would have been a pretty big waste, and you'd be losing another key front seven player. Seattle's lost more than a few of those key front seven players in the last few years of free agency, but that will not be the case. He helps join that group with guys like Draymond Jones, Jaron Reed, Uchenna Nwosu, who's going to come back from injury, Boye Mafe, to kind of help solidify that D-line and the outside linebacker position. So it'll be a lot of fun to look at that, see what Mike McDonald's defense can work on with that D-line and those outside linebackers. But the inside linebacker position is one they're going to have to work with. We'll address the players lost via free agency here in a minute once we get to who they've signed already. So, no, it's nice for them to look at that. You don't see too much in terms of the risk. Seattle's liked what they've seen from him. There is the risk of the 3-year deal, the length of it, considering his age. He does turn 30 in June. He played in 10 games with Seattle. So it'll be interesting to see. He didn't transform their run defense a bunch, so maybe you could pick at that. But they do feel great considering that he was able to play 18 games throughout the course of the year. Yes, 18, because of the fact that he played out the Giants season with them and ahead of the trade deadline and then played the rest of the year with the Seahawks. So he played 18 games in total. It's only been done, I think, once ever in NFL history. So really nice to see Williams join that list and gives you some good feelings about his reliability going forward. So we look at some other things with returning names here. This one I didn't really expect for Artie Burns to come back, but the team brought back cornerback Artie Burns. He was largely a depth piece. After some of the bigger deals with Williams and Noah Fant, who we'll get to in a second. It's a 1-year deal for Artie Burns. He's been a solid depth piece the last 2 years and a veteran voice amongst a really young cornerback room. He did step in a few times throughout the course of the year to play nickelback. So we'll see there. He didn't really play nickelback previously in his career, it was kind of a tough spot to put him in. He had to step up, when Devin Witherspoon had to deal with injuries here and there. Tariq Woolen got benched at points throughout the course of the year. Seattle generally tried to deal with their defensive issues as well. And with Devon Witherspoon coming back and hopefully good to go for the entirety of the 2024 season, Burns likely plays more of a depth role. It is a 1-year minimum salary. He played on that last year. Seattle didn't have to give him any guaranteed money, and his cap charge was less than $1 million. So it'll be interesting to see what deal he's brought it back on, but I don't doubt it's something that is much bigger than that. He'll be fighting for his own roster spot. He'll be a depth piece. He's going to have, you look at the cornerback room. I mentioned Devon Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen. Trey Brown is also a young cornerback there as well. Maybe Michael Jackson, who played the last few years with Seattle as well, depending on what happens with him. So we look at a few of the other names. The team did bring back Darrell Taylor on a 1-year deal. So instead of tendering him as a restricted rights free agent for $3.1 million, they signed him to a slightly better one-year deal. On top of a non-guaranteed $3.136 million base salary, he gets a $20,000 signing bonus and the ability to earn an additional $350,000 in sack incentives. So, I mean, Darrell Taylor's shown flashes here. He's not necessarily a strong run defender, which has kind of cost him his starting job since 2022. But he's been valuable as a situational edge rusher, something that Seattle really hasn't been able to get, for a few years now. So there's that with Darrell Taylor. We'll look here at Noah Fant. He was a guy that I was wondering about when he signed the deal before the season as his contract was coming up. He signed a 2-year, $20 million contract with a $9 million signing bonus. He will likely need to be featured considering that he got paid a decent amount and they really didn't do that much at all last year. He was a first-round pick back in 2019 by the Broncos, obviously acquired in the Russell Wilson trade. With this free agency happening and a few names moving on, he is the only player that was a part of that trade that is still with the team. He caught 32 of 43 targets for 414 yards and no touchdowns in 2023. Part of it, along with Seattle's inability to keep drives moving forward and, the struggles along the offensive line, was that he also, Seattle really rolled with that trio of Kobe Parkinson and Will Dissly at the tight end position. Both of those guys are gone. Again, we'll look at the players lost via free agency here in a minute. They're looking at Fant to become more of a focal point in that offense, and it'll be fun to see what Ryan Grubb is able to do with him. It's going to look, he gets a little bit of a raise here. It's a big contract for him who really hasn't produced that much, so you're really looking to focalize him in this offense and make that money worth it, so to say. So it's a lot of what we look at with returning players. There's a few new names for the Seahawks to look at, and I almost moved on to them, but we're going to do that now. Most recently, actually, the team signed linebacker Jerome Baker to a 1-year, $7 million deal, bringing him over from the Miami Dolphins. He helps replace Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks, who have gone elsewhere. He essentially replaces Jordan Brooks, who went to the Dolphins on a 3-year deal, in the middle of that defense that will look different in terms of personnel and scheme under head coach Mike McDonald. The Dolphins released Jerome Baker with a failed physical designation before they signed Jordan Brooks. He's a year older than Brooks at 27, is coming off of a pair of injuries, so there's some concern there. He has been a solid playmaker over Brooks, recording 5 career interceptions, so Brooks is just 1, and 22.5 sacks, so Brooks is 6.5. He won't count against Seattle's formula for compensatory picks because he was released by Miami. It's interesting to see what he's able to do coming off those pair of injuries. He missed 4 games last year with an MCL injury, then dislocated his wrist in his first game back from that, which required surgery and sidelined him for Miami's playoff game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Besides that, and the fact that Seattle really needs to continue to add depth at the inside linebacker position, there's some concern. The other inside linebacker that they signed came from the same division that Baker was coming from, Terrell Dodson. Dodson played last year with the Bills, signed a 1-year deal with the Seahawks. So there you replace Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks with Jerome Baker and Terrell Dodson. It's going to be interesting to see. They're both 1-year deals, so Seattle doesn't seem to be looking like they're committed to these guys for the long term. I imagine personally they're going to go through the draft and develop some guys and raise them up, and Mike McDonald can mold those guys into his linebackers of the future. But it's interesting. Dodson came into the league in 2019 as a free agent, undrafted. Really came into a starting role last year and posted career highs in tackles at 74, sacks at 2.5, and tackles for loss at 8. He's a 6-foot, 237-pound linebacker with 4.6 40 speed. He looks like he can add some strong speed to the middle of that defense, which the team has kind of need since Bobby Wagner was younger. So it'll be interesting to see the money side of the Dodson deal. He's not as established. There was concern with that, especially when you lose guys like Wagner and Brooks who have established themselves here with Seattle. He was primarily a backup before making his 10 starts last year. In 2019, he served a 6-game NFL suspension after his girlfriend accused him of becoming violent with her during an argument. He was arrested on charges of domestic violence and disorderly conduct. He denied the charges and reached a deal, pleading guilty to misdemeanor disorderly conduct. The Bills themselves said their investigation did not find any signs of domestic violence and noted that Dodson had no previous legal issues. So if you want to look at the risk, there it is. It'll be really interesting to see how that plays out and how we get to know Mr. Dodson as well. Moving on with some of the new names, adding to the tight end room, which the team will still need to do so after losing 2 tight ends via free agency in Disley and Parkinson. The team pairs former Oregon Duck Farrell Brown along with Noah Brent. He signs a 1-year, $3.2 million base deal with a maximum value of $3.9 million. So he was actually their first outside addition of free agency, which was very unique. Felt like an overpay maybe. They bring him in after Parkinson leaves and Disley leaves, so they at least need another tight end to add there. Brown's interesting. He's a 29-year-old. He caught 13 passes for a career-high 208 yards and 1 touchdown last season with the New England Patriots. He scored 3 touchdowns across 7 seasons since entering the NFL as an undrafted free agent. He's likely to fall into a depth role as the 3rd tight end on the depth chart, and he's more of a blocking tight end. So expect him to see and run fits and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I mean, the first outside edition of free agency didn't excite a lot of people, largely because of the lack of production, the lack of a big name, and the fact that he's likely just going to be a run blocker and the 3rd tight end on this depth chart. He did play 209 special team snaps last year for New England, the 8th most on the Patriots, so he could have value there after the Seahawks did cut special teams captain and linebacker and fullback Nick Bellore. Brown played in 17 games last year and 16 back in 2022, so there's no real concern about his durability, which is nice. Continuing and looking to areas where the Seahawks were filling in after they lost players, the team signed safety Rayshon Jenkins to a 2-year, $12 million deal. So after cutting Diggs and Adams, you bring in Jenkins. He gives them an option to start opposite of Julian Love, or maybe play alongside him if they decide to play in 3 safety packages. Whatever that is, Jenkins he has 5 years of NFL experience, starting experience that is, and 10 career interceptions, including 5 over his last 2 years. He's not quite the ball hawk that Quandre Diggs was, or the sort of blitzer that Adams was before his injury, but he is a bit cheaper than both of them, and that's nice, obviously, for Seattle. He won't count against their compensatory picks because he was cut by the Jaguars earlier in the month of March. He isn't necessarily a better player than Quandre Diggs, at least for me, who played at a Pro Bowl level lately in the last 4 years and picked off 15 passes in that span, and he didn't miss a game either. This is telling you I would have rather kept Quandre Diggs. But the Seattle seems to think that Jenkins will be a better value, if nothing else. His deal is similar to the one that the team gave Julian Love last March, including a $6.6 million this season, which is $11 million less than Quandre Diggs was going to be owed in the final year of his deal. Cutting Diggs, though, does mean that Seattle is taking on $10.26 million in dead money. So depending on how they structure this Jenkins deal, that swap will save Seattle around $7 million in cap space, as well as $4.4 million in cash for this upcoming season, albeit for a player who's a little bit less accomplished and only 1 year younger than Diggs. So there was that. With Jenkins, we move on to the last outside addition, and it's a fun one because he's a former Husky. The team signed offensive lineman Nick Harris to a 1-year, $2.51 million deal with a maximum value of $3.26 million. There might be he might be the starting center for the team. I wouldn't doubt that they add some players in the area there via the draft. So, but it's fun. Evan Brown was there last year. Doesn't look like he's going to be back. Someone that will compete with last year's draft pick out of Michigan, Olu Oluwatimi, for the job. It's kind of similar to what Brown signed 12 months ago, both in terms of the fact that it's modest and because of his background. Harris played 281 career snaps at center, 154 at right guard. And even if he doesn't necessarily start at the center position or right guard, considering there's another player from the inside line that's gone, we'll talk about that again in a minute, he really could be valuable to back up, the interior line. He's much less experienced than Evan Brown, though. He's only made 4 career starts over 4 seasons with the Cleveland Browns, having missed the 2021-22 season, with a knee injury. He reunites with the O-line coach he played under at the University of Washington with Scott Huff, who was hired to the same role on Mike Macdonald's staff. So all three of Seattle's interior offensive line starters from last year are free agents. And Damian Lewis has left, meaning Harris is the only start of a lot of retooling that's going to happen at the interior O-line. He was fine as a center last year for Cleveland. He's a bit younger at 25 years old and will cost Seattle about the same. So it'll be very unique to see if he's any better. He only started 3 games last year at center, including two last season at center, and started 3 games. He posted an excellent pass block rate at the center position, but that's not enough sample size to really say, if it's going to be sustainable or not. So it's going to be interesting to watch that position battle of him and Oluwatimi and maybe a draft pick in the interior line. We look over here on your screen to the players that the team lost via free agency. I've kind of talked about all of them so far. Both linebackers, Bobby Wagner has gone to the Washington Commanders to reunite with Dan Quinn, and he's also earning his doctorate at Howard, which is very cool. Just sucks to lose Bobby for a second time now. Jordan Brooks is off to join the Miami Dolphins, essentially the team swapping Jerome Baker and Jordan Brooks. Tight end Will Dissly, Uncle Will, goes to the LA Chargers, so unfortunate to lose another Husky. Offensive guard Damian Lewis goes to the Carolina Panthers, as mentioned. Tight end Kobe Parkinson went to the LA Rams, so the Seattle tight ends both went to LA, just to different teams. Running back DJ Dallas, a fan favorite, went to the Arizona Cardinals, so he stays in the division. Backup quarterback Drew Lock went to the New York Giants. Initially, it was reported that he was going to battle with Daniel Jones for the starter position, but that does not appear to be true, at least per Drew Lock's comments. Linebacker Devin Bush, who really didn't get that much playing time, goes to the Cleveland Browns, and offensive tackle Jake Curran goes to the Chicago Bears. So to wrap up all of that, as we've talked about all of those players and the players that have left, it seems a lot to me, and at least to a lot of the folks that covered this Seahawks team, that this is it's a transitional year. Mike Macdonald and John Schneider are going to reconstruct this team. They're probably going to bring in a lot of young talent through the course of the draft. I wouldn't be surprised to see a few more personnel moves ahead of the draft, or maybe even during it, after it. But I don't expect to compete for a Super Bowl this year, unfortunately. And that's fine. I mean, with McDonald signed to the contract that he is, you want to build the team right. You want to build it for the future. You want to win consistently. You don't want to bank it all for one chance at a Super Bowl. So I get it. It'll be really fun to see who the team drafts and look at them and see them develop. I imagine the team will draft a few linebackers, inside linebackers at least. Oh, yes. And there was the trade, for Sam Howell. So the team did acquire Sam Howell via trade from the Washington Commanders. And normally this is where I would have gone and said, hey, Seattle might draft a quarterback, considering that they've got the mid-first round pick. And there was the thought that they'd reunite Michael Penix Jr. with Ryan Grubb, which I would have loved personally. And it still can happen, technically. But the team did this past week acquire Sam Howell via trade with the Washington Commanders. So Howell comes to Seattle. Oops, I might have lost it here. There it is, yeah. So back on Thursday, back on the 14th, Seattle received Howell and a 4th-round pick in this year's draft, plus a 6th-rounder in exchange for a 3rd-round pick and a 5th-round pick. So the 3rd-round pick that Seattle gives up is their own pick, and the 5th-rounder that they gave up, they have another pick in the 3rd round thanks to the one that the Denver Broncos gave them in the Russell Wilson trade. So Seattle replaces Locke with Sam Howell, which I don't mind. I mean, Sam Howell's a good thrower of the football. He's made some mistakes. We saw how good he could be when the Commanders came here to play the Seahawks and barely lost to Seattle on a field goal. But I kind of would have rather drafted a quarterback. But I guess Schneider and the front office liked what they saw in Howell. They liked what they could get him for, and that's where we are. So that wraps up our Seahawks section of the show. It's a fine start, but again, it really looks like this upcoming year for the team will be a transition more than anything else. So we move there from the Seahawks. We move in to our Mariners side of things as spring training continues to roll on. This is supposed to be an exciting week for the younger development of some of the Mariners, as the breakout game between MLB breakout was going to be a bunch of the spring breakout, pardon me, was supposed to be between all of the best prospects in each team's respective system. That game got rained out, which was really unfortunate because it was going to be really fun to watch all of the young, exciting players in the farm system go head-to-head with those of the San Diego Padres. So aside of that, we look in here to the past week of games for the Mariners, and every time, we have to look at the past week of games for spring training, I have to talk about the fact that, we're not necessarily looking at the results, but there's a lot more wins here for the Mariners, so I guess you can take a victory in that. March 11th versus those San Diego Padres at the Peoria Sports Complex. The Mariners lost that one by a score of 3-13. Our player of the game, shortstop J.P. Crawford. J.P. 1 hit, 1 run, 2 RBIs, and a homer in this one. On March 12th at the Oakland Athletics, a 2-4 loss. Our player of the game, shortstop Dylan Moore, Demo, 2 hits, 1 RBI. Playing against the LA Dodgers, who are largely picked to be the upcoming World Series favorites. With them bringing in Shohei Ohtani, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The Mariners won that one by a score of 8-1. The Dodgers, again, it's preseason. It's preseason, spring training. There isn't a lot of stock you take in the results, but an 8-1 win over a team that's favored to win the World Series, it's nice, it's cool. Our player of the game in that one, designated hitter Mitch Garver. Mitch continues to mash, 2 hits, 1 run, and 2 RBI for the team's day-to-day DH on March 14th versus the Milwaukee Brewers, a 4-2 win. Our player of the game, another Mitch on the Mariners, who also played DH on this day, Mitch Hamaker. Mitch, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 RBI, and 1 homer in this one. March 15th, the same day that the spring breakout game was going to take place at the LA Angels, was rained out. So that was unfortunate. So much for Arizona, Phoenix Valley weather. Shame. March 16th, the Mariners had a split squad contest at the Cincinnati Reds and versus the Chicago White Sox at home. They would win both of them. At the Reds, an 11-7 win. Our player of the game, right fielder Alberto Rodriguez, the young prospect, 1 hit, 1 run, 3 RBIs, and 1 walk on the day for Alberto versus the White Sox, an 8-2 win. Our player of the game, left fielder Dom Canzone. Canzone, 2 hits, 1 run, 2 RBIs, and 1 homer. So we look up at this. As I've talked about, with spring training, we're looking at some of the individual efforts. It's always nice, you look at here, you see guys like J.P. Crawford, Mitch Haniger, Mitch Garver, contributing, guys who are established veterans. That's great to see. You really want that consistency offensively. That's something that the Mariners have talked about all through the offseason here and through spring training. They want to be consistent on offense to help out that amazing pitching staff, and you need that to carry over into the regular season, obviously. But what I enjoy a little bit as well with spring training, there's 2 sides of it. You want to see the vets do their job. You want to see them perform, shout a little, get people excited for the upcoming regular season. But then you want to watch some of the younger guys, and that could be some of the younger guys that are going to be on the big league level and some of the younger guys in terms of the prospects. And we would have seen the prospects a lot more with the spring breakout, but thanks to the rain, we have to wait. I believe that got pushed back to next week. We'll look into that. But Alberto Rodriguez, a guy that we saw at the Everett Aqua Sox level, seeing him perform well is nice. And then Dom Canzone, both of those guys performing on the March 16th day when the Mariners had the split squad. Dom Canzone has added some weight. He's added some muscle this offseason and has been hitting the ball well. I was really excited for Canzone after the Paul Sewald trade. There's some holes in his swing. He swings at a lot, which is something to improve upon, especially with the emphasis from the front office to cut down on the strikeouts. This past year, getting rid of guys like Eugenio Suarez, Teoscar Hernandez, Jared Kelenic, I get it. I really do. But Canzone's looks strong in spring training, so I'm really excited to see if maybe he's able to solidify that left field position, with Canzone in left, Julio in center, and Mitch in right field. I know there's some concern with Mitch Haniger and his injury history, and he's going to play as many games in right field as they want him to. But if you can look at most of the season, that outfield being Canzone, Julio, Mitch, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. And then you get a guy like Luke Raley, who hit the ball really well last year, had a career year, to come in and contribute when the corner outfielders need a day off. I'm not mad at it. Or you look at the respective splits here and there, all of that. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. So we'll see how that goes. We do have some injury updates for you. Some of them not so great. Some of them better as we get through spring training. That's been a big aspect of this year's spring training, with some of the relievers dealing with stuff and, the occasional bumps and bruises here and there. So we'll look at that. Relief pitcher Gregory Santos is still rehabbing and resting after an incident on Monday and had not been cleared to start throwing yet. Back on Monday, he did suffer a mild lat strain, and was set down for a few days and is not going to be ready for opening day. An MRI would later reveal inflammation in the lat, but no structural damage, which is a good sign. He wasn't originally slated to be ready by opening day per Scott Service, as everything would have had to gone perfectly. But this all but essentially makes it official. So not great to not have him by opening day, but if you're able to mitigate any sort of long-term injury, shut him down, keep him strong. I'd rather have him for the rest of the regular season than just opening day. Relief pitcher Ryan Stanek, that the team signed last week, will throw in a Cactus League game this upcoming week. Catcher Cal Raleigh was a scratch from the lineup back on March 16th due to a bruised heel as a precautionary decision. He would have played in the regular season, but Mariners, being cautious, kept him out of that game on the 16th. And then lastly, relief pitcher Matt Brash threw long toss to 110 feet at maximum effort. If he comes out of that okay, he will then throw off the mound this upcoming week. We do throw it immediately to some team-related news on March 14th amongst a couple different roster-related moves. Mauricio Llovera cleared waivers from the team and was outrighted directly to AAA Tacoma. His velocity had been down 2 to 4 miles per hour this spring. He was acquired this offseason from the Boston Red Sox, so the team, he could be one of those pieces, there were a few guys who didn't start the year on the opening day roster, like Taylor Saucedo, like Justin Topa. So maybe he ends up like that, starting in AAA, finding himself. Even a few years ago, Paul Sewald had to come up from AAA Tacoma. So obviously there's some concern with his velocity being down, so hopefully he's able to figure that out, get that sorted out. And I know he's got some solid stuff, but if you're not able to figure out velocity, it won't necessarily play as well at the big league level. So Llovera down to the Rainiers. Same day on the 14th, 5 players were reassigned to minor league camp. Left-handed pitcher Kirby Snead, another reliever that the Mariners acquired this offseason. Catcher Harry Ford, infielder Tyler Locklear, infielder Cole Tucker, and infielder Cole Young. So a bad day to be a minor leaguer named Cole, as you got sent back to minor league camp. And those last 4 really don't surprise me that much. Those are all guys that will play an impact in the Mariners' future, but they are not ready to be at the opening at the major league level right now, and that's not really a surprise to anybody. But it'll be fun to see those guys continue to play out through the minor league season, see where they end up amongst the farm, and to watch them play out their respective year. Who knows? Maybe one of them rockets up and does get called up this year. So on the 15th, relief pitcher Nathaniel Garabitos was named as the player to be named later in the trade with the Kansas City Royals. That net the Mariners infielder/outfielder Samad Taylor back in January. So it's always interesting to see when there's the player to be named later who it ends up being. Garabitos ends up going to the Royals in that trade. He'd shown some good stuff with the Modesto Nuts, some nice velocity, and some big moments in their playoff run for the Cal League, but he ends up going to the Royals in that trade, so best of luck to him. We look over now to the upcoming week in spring training games as things continue to tick away and we continue to tick closer to opening day on March 28th versus the Boston Red Sox. We're 10 days away from opening day by the time that you're watching this. That is pretty crazy to think about. So We'll look at these games for you. March 18th at the Texas Rangers is a 1:05 p.m. Pacific time start, as the Mariners have a spring training record of 9-12 and one tie on the year. March 19th versus the Colorado Rockies at home is a 1:10 p.m. Pacific time start. March 21st versus the Cincinnati Reds, getting a rematch with them after their game this past week. As I'm going to try to pull up the TV schedule for the Mariners here, is a 6:40 start. So all of those that you've noticed for the past few weeks and most of this week are all 1:10 or 1:05 starts. Not that game against the Reds. That's a 6:40 start on the 21st. March 22nd is a split squad day versus the Milwaukee Brewers at Peoria at 1:10, and then on the road at the Arizona Diamondbacks at 1:10. It's the second time that the Mariners will play the Diamondbacks this spring training after the March 17th game on Sunday, as they'll see Eugenio Suarez and Paul Sewald again, potentially. There's no guarantee that those guys who will likely be starters for the Diamondbacks will play. That's a 1:10 game. March 23rd at the Chicago White Sox is a 1:05 game. And then on the 24th, to wrap things up, they play the other Chicago team. You might get mad at me depending on which team you're a fan of from Chicago, versus the Chicago Cubs. It's a 1:10 start. That game will be the one that is shown at the opening week warm-up at T-Mobile Park. So there's that. Let's see, over the upcoming weeks, March 24th versus the Cubs, that's going to be on Root Sports. That's the only game this upcoming week that will be on Root Sports. Yikes. Let's see. We'll get back to that opening week warm-up. We talked about it when it was announced earlier, but just a few things here. Gates open at 11 a.m. for season ticket holders if you're going to the opening week warm-up at 11 a.m. and then 12 p.m. for all fans. The event does conclude at 4 p.m. Tickets are $10 free for kids 14 and under. For every one purchased ticket, you can add 4 free kids tickets, so you can really bring the kids out there, really encouraging that. That's Sunday, March 24th at T-Mobile Park. Parking at the Mariners Garage while space lasts is $10. As I mentioned, 11 a.m. season ticket member gates and 12 p.m. for all fans. They'll have the spring training game versus the Cubs on the big screen. First pitch at 1:10, as mentioned. They'll have autograph sessions, photo ops, and meet and greets with Mariners legends and Mariners future. Edgar Martinez, Felix Hernandez, Ryan Roldan-Smith, Charlie Furbush will all be there that are former Mariners. You look at some of the young guys, we've talked about some of them. Cole Young, Harry Ford, Colt Emerson, Lazaro Montes will all be there. You can pitch in the bullpen, run the bases, sit in the dugout. They'll take you through the clubhouse, the Muckleshoot interview room, some of the premium spaces like the Diamond Club and such. They'll have the value menu available for the first time this 2024 year and the new beer lineup. And then you can see some of the gear for this upcoming season. So there is that. That will wrap us up with the Mariners side of things.
What's going on, everybody? Yo, we are back in the Layup Lounge. Again, shout out Circling Sports. Wayne, how you doing?
Hanging in there, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yes, sir.
There's a couple things we need to talk about. Mike Hopkins, after 7 years with the program, he has been let go. His overall record was 118 and 106, including wins. They beat Gonzaga this year. They had a few early good wins against like Kansas in 2017, Arizona in 2018. And then we had a tournament win in 2019 against Utah. So, I mean, there was some good stuff that went on along those 6-7 years, but it was time with that. And then, Corin Johnson, super sophomore out of Garfield High School. He averaged 11 points this year, including 18 points a game, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, the last 8 games of his UW career. And now it seems like the UW program is looking to make some changes. What do you think they should do?
Man, first of all, congratulations to Corin Johnson for winning Sixth Man of the Year.
Absolutely.
He won Pac-12 Sixth Man of the Year, so congratulations for getting the hardware. So wherever he goes, we're excited to see what he does at his next program. He's one of the most talented players to come out of Seattle in the past couple years. I mean, he's one of like the elite guards that we've seen, just talent-wise. So wherever he goes, he's going to be like a major contributing player there.
Yeah.
Just for the program itself, though, I feel like UW just needs like a soft reset. I think they should try and like really hone it back in and get some of these homegrown players to start going back to UW.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it starts there just because the talent pool we have out here in Seattle, Tacoma, just even in Eastern Washington, there's so many talented basketball players just in the state of Washington. So I think if we can get a head coach who can really centralize their recruiting in Washington, in the Pacific Northwest, and start retaining some of our local talent, I think that's the best way to do it.
And you talk about that, and the first name I had in mind was Brandon Roy.
Bingo.
Just because you see what he did, even going back to his first year at Nathan Hale.
Yeah.
We had, they had a Michael Porter Jr.,
Yep.
his brother Jonte, his little brother, PJ Fuller.
Yeah.
You know, they had dudes on that squad.
For sure.
And that was because of B. Roy. Because before that, Nathan Hale, no offense, they weren't much. You know what I'm saying? Nothing was really going on over there, and he made something happen over there. So I think that just his presence at like in the UW program, I think that'd do wonders for that program. And then, I mean, we also got to start thinking about this too, NIL. I think that NIL is also one of the key contributing factors of recruiting, and I think that's why we see it a lot in college football, but I think in basketball it's going to start to also rise. And I think that that opportunity, if we make that a big opportunity here, I think that more guys will come, not just from the local area, but even outsiders, because we need a lot of as much talent as we can get, and we got to think outside of here.
For sure. I think if we can really maximize the NIL and present it alongside, like, yo, you'll be playing for Brandon Roy too.
Right.
Like, that's a package that a lot of players aren't going to want to turn away from. It's like, I could go out to Seattle, I'm hooping, there's NIL opportunities, and I get to play for Brandon Roy, like a former player that went to UW.
Played there, yeah.
He's an all-star in the NBA. Like, he knows the NBA. So
Yeah,
it's
he
like,
knows what it takes.
He knows what it takes, exactly. So,
Speaking of like UW guys in general, Isaiah Thomas, he just got a 10-day contract with the Phoenix Suns. He previously played for the Phoenix Suns, about 8 to 10 years ago.
Yep.
Now he returns, totally different team from when he was there to now. Just talk about him and what do you think he can bring to the table?
first of all, just major congrats to IT. Back in the league, finally, the slow grind continued.
Yes, sir.
Never doubted himself. When everybody else kind of was doubting him or making fun of him, he kind of just put his head down, had his end goal in sight, and was able to maximize the opportunity, and he's back in the league. So major props to him. Major motivational story for anybody going through anything.
Absolutely.
Just slow grind, make those daily deposits and make it happen. But for IT and his outlook on the Suns right now, if he gets an opportunity to actually get some contributing minutes for this 10-day contract, we know IT is going to do. He's going to ball out. He's going to hoop. It's just whether or not they want to retain him after that 10-day. What does their roster need going forward into the playoffs?
Yeah.
Because the end of their bench this year has kind of just been a revolving door of in and out players, trying new guys, who's going to fit best for this team.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're picking him up this late in the season, I'm hoping he just sticks around for the rest of the year, whether that's as a contributing player, a veteran presence on the bench, however it looks. But Isaiah Thomas belongs in the league, so hopefully this 10-day contract leads to some more longevity for him.
Absolutely. I think that hopefully whatever role that they want him to play, he's going to maximize it out. I know that he will. But I honestly think that he can contribute on the floor with this team. I think that they need a boost, especially in that point guard area. Guys like Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, they're in and out the lineup. So I think that, Isaiah Thomas has been healthy for quite a while now. He's just been working out, ready for this opportunity. I think now that he has it, especially with a team that is looking to contend, I think that this is a good opportunity for him to, get his name back out there, regardless of what happens, whether it's with this team or, there's 29 other teams in the league that might be looking for another point guard. So if it doesn't work out here, I think regardless, I think he's going to be back in the NBA for as long as he wants to be. We kind of talked about it already. I mean, the humility, the perseverance that he had, grinding in the gym after, teams were not picking up the phone to call him. He was just in there grinding, working out. I seen videos of him at the UW, just working out. I'm sure he was working out with Will Conroy and those guys.
Yeah. I want to say I actually saw Will Conroy tweet.
Yeah.
IT was in here every morning, just working every single day. People would ask him, are you going to make it back into the league? And he would say, I don't know, but I'm ready.
Right.
I'm ready if I do. So that's just the mentality he had, which was amazing to see. He never quit on himself. Even after you see the pro-am video of him crying, talking about how the league gave up on him. There's a lot of emotion and weight carried with his journey throughout the league. So major props to IT. Happy to see him back.
Yeah, regardless of what happens after this contract or just going on for the rest of his career, the fact that he never gave up is something that needs to be respected for sure. And I think that documentary is going to go crazy. I mean, whenever he hangs it up, hopefully, I know that he'll hang it up on a high note. He's coming up at 35, but I think he's still got a solid couple years left in him. And I think we're going to see some productive basketball on that end.
Or you could come coach UW. Come on, IT.
IT,
you and B. Roy?
Brandon, look,
Okay.
I mean, like we talked about it, we need.
Come
I
on.
think those alumni. The alumni is important in the program. I mean, there's boosters and things like that, but I think that it starts with the alumni coming back and promoting the school.
Definitely.
And I think that a lot of the UW guys, they wear UW on their sleeve a lot. They take a lot of pride in that. I'm sure if you ask IT or any of those guys, they'll probably say that's probably one of their best times. So hopefully, yeah. Like B-Roy would be perfect. So hopefully we get, a guy in that caliber that can recruit but also do well in the X's and O's.
Definitely.
But yeah, no, that's gonna wrap it up. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Layup Lounge, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff. And again, shout out Circling Seattle Sports for the love.
Come on, let's do it.
Out.
We go over here to the Storm, and just like last week when we talked about their preseason game in Canada, we've got news on one preseason game. That's all we got. The Storm will host the Phoenix Mercury in their lone home preseason game this year. It's the final game of 2024 preseason on May 7th at 7 p.m. at Climate Pledge Arena against the Phoenix Mercury, just 2 days after their preseason game in Canada, Edmonton, Alberta, against the Los Angeles Sparks on Sunday, May 5th. They'll welcome Diana Taurasi along with newcomers Natasha Cloud, Kalia Copper, and the rest of the Phoenix Mercury to Seattle to close out the preseason slate prior to opening the regular season a week later. So there's that. Again, with the draft coming up here in the next few weeks for the Storm, and with some of the players that the team has signed previously that we've talked about to training camp contracts, it's going to be fun to see how that all works out. With preseason, because obviously, those are really opportunities, one, for the team to tune things up, those veterans that are essentially guaranteed spots to tune things up, but also some of those younger players, maybe some of those players who don't have those concrete positions to go and solidify themselves and earn their own spot. So outside of that, we'll go directly to this. Mercedes Russell over in the WNBL in Australia earned the grand final MVP and the recipient of the Rachel Sporn Medal as a true champion on and off the court, which is really cool to see. Mercedes Russell performed well over in the WNBL. Her and Lauren Jackson, Storm legend, are both WNBL champions for the Southside Flyers as they won their final game of the year, 115-81. Really fun to see that, and for Mercedes to continue to perform well. It'll be really fun to see her as one of the bigs on this Storm team come in and contribute, and as continue to add to her repertoire as Nneka Ogwumike is here, and will continue to push her career forward as well. So we got that. We go directly into the Sounders side of things, and as I talked about at the top of the show, they still really haven't been able to figure out the goal scoring issue, and they still don't have an open play goal. So we'll go right into that. March 16th versus the Colorado Rapids, their second home match of the year, and only their third match of the year because, as talked about last week, their road match against the Philadelphia Union was rained out and will have to be rescheduled. So March 16th versus the Rapids, a 1-1 draw. Our player of the match is goalkeeper Andrew Thomas. Made some big stops. He stopped a penalty kick. He made a big save initially on what would become the Colorado goal and didn't really get any help after he made the save, and it went off the near post, and it kind of laid in front of the goal line as Thomas had dove, and the Sounders players really didn't help him out by clearing the ball out, and Colorado Rapids attacker Kevin Cabral, different person. Kevin Cabral was able to just tap that home and equalize this match. Seattle scored first. Raul Ruiz in the 11th minute drew a penalty on a handball. He scored a nice Panenka just over Rapids goalkeeper Zach Steffen. That was really fun to see. Both teams traded attack in that first half, but Seattle really was the better team. Immediately into the second half, Josh Atencio gets a first yellow card. 10 minutes later, he'd get his second on. It was a bad tackle. It was a bad decision to make about 60 yards away from your own box as Colorado was trying to mount a counterattack. And then 10 minutes after that, Jackson Reagan gave up the penalty kick to Colorado. It was stopped by Andrew Thomas, as I mentioned. And then a few minutes after that, as the club was down to 10 men because of Atencio getting the 2 yellow cards, they'd get a free kick on a Denny Leyva foul right outside of the box. That free kick stopped by Thomas, as I mentioned, and then Cabral coming in and tapping it in. And with those 10 men, Seattle really wasn't able to do anything throughout the rest of the second half on the attacking side of things. We'll go straight into the injury news with the pre-match. Goalkeeper Stephen Fry, he should be good to go next week. He was getting closer this week, but they decided to hold him out another week. Midfielder João Paulo is day-to-day. Head coach Brian Schmetzer really didn't provide much of an update on him, and it was very vague. Both Yeimar Gomez Andrade and Albert Rusnak were available for selection in this match, and both came on, as substitutes. And Nathan also, who is going back to get his green card, is back from Brazil. So we look up here. It's frustrating. I mean, I wrote about it, but you look at the Sounders team, they're really not able to score in the open play, which is kind of frustrating just because they've generated well in the open play as well. It's not like they're not generating anything. Last week they didn't against Philadelphia because it got rained out, so you can look at that. But they've generated solidly. They've generated more than they've really actually scored in reality. They've defended largely well. I mean, there are moments here and there where they've broken down, and even then, I mean, you look at it, you haven't had Yeimar fully until this week. Alex Roldan was dealing with injuries early. Nathan had to come in and start. Javi dealt with an injury in this match, so you're dealing with injuries. You're dealing with that. The start of the year really hasn't been what you wanted it to be. You still haven't played with Stephen Fry yet. João Paulo hasn't touched the field, and he's been one of the most influential players since he signed here. Albert Rusnak just got back into the attack this week. You're going to be without Josh Atencio next week because of the red card. So there's a lot of frustrating storylines here for the Sounders team. I'm not hitting the panic button quite yet. Again, we're 3 matches in. You're not fully healthy yet. You've shown positive signs. It's not all doom and gloom for the club. I understand that a lot of the social media reaction will be that, but I'm not social media. I mean, we're on social media, but I'm not going to react like that or overreact there, so on and so forth. So frustrating, of course. You're dropping points at home as well. That's, I believe, 4 total points that you've dropped at home, but I'm not super worried about it, especially considering how deep into the calendar year that the MLS season goes. So we look at that. We move straight into team-related notes. We learned the League Cup dates that the Sounders will be playing for this upcoming year's tournament. July 26th versus Minnesota United is a 7 o'clock kickoff, and then August 4th versus Club Nechaka is a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. Both of those will be at Lumen Field, so Seattle is able to get the home field advantage, which is nice. And I believe no matter where they end up in their respective group, they move on in the tournament to the round of 32, which will be interesting to see. So there's that for you. Also, on March 15th, we heard from Brian Schmetzer that while there were negotiations this offseason and somewhat recently with forward and club legend Freddie Montero, in order for him to return to the club, negotiations were at an impasse is what the latest update was on that. There is some reports that Freddie Montero might go back to his hometown club, so the deal that he's being offered from then might be better than Seattle. At this point right now, if you're asking me to ballpark it, I don't imagine Montero comes back. But, people move past impasses, so we could see. The Sounders sit at a 0-win, 1-loss, 2-draw record. They've got 2 whopping points in the standings, good for 13th in all of the Western Conference, which is only better than one team, and that team has 0 points. And then in the league, they're 26th, which is not ideal either. Looking ahead, their next contest is next week, March 23rd at the San Jose Earthquakes, a 7:30 p.m. start. While San Jose historically has struggled in the last few years, they haven't struggled against Seattle, as the Sounders have not beaten the Earthquakes in their past 5 matches dating back to 2021. We go over here to the Kraken, and I talk about struggles, and I talk about lately, and I hate to break it to you. I hate to tell you this face to face. These guys aren't making the playoffs. They're cooked. They're done. They're overcooked. They're overbaked. They're the cookies you left in the oven a little too long, and they're basically as good as bricks now. It's tough. I tried to hold on hope with these guys for a while, but, when we look at them, my last straw, really, and my last hope that was crushed, stomped on, thrown away, tossed aside, led astray, run amok, was March 12th versus the Las Vegas Golden Knights. The first of 3 games this past week. It was an overtime loss, 4-5. Our player of the game was for Brandon Tanev, 1 goal, 1 point, a 1+-, 4 shots, and 1 hit on the day. The Kraken held a 2-goal lead late into this game. Immediately, they gave up a goal to William Karlsson to bring Las Vegas within 1. They, in terms of Las Vegas, was able to score a tying goal with the goalie pulled and a 6th skater out with 16 seconds left. Jonathan Marchessault gets it. The Kraken had been stretched thin. Marchessault found an open spot far side and was able to score, tying things up. Going into overtime, Kraken really weren't able to do too much, and Jack Eichel gets the game winner in overtime. And this photo that you've been looking at for a few seconds of the game, by Rio Giancarlo, that kind of did it. With the Golden Knights falling into the second wild card spot in the Western Conference, this was a 4-point swing, and you really could have used those 4 points if you were going to make that historic run that you would have needed to get into the playoffs and to earn one of those wild card spots, but you didn't. At the end of the day, winners win, and the Kraken did not. We move over. You wanted to keep any hope. You're like, okay, well, their playoff odds went down to 5% after that. March 14th versus the Washington Capitals, the night that they honored Jordan Eberle for his 1,000 career games. He got that 1,000 career game mark against the Golden Knights in that overtime loss. Versus the Capitals, a team that themselves are looking to fight all the way back into a wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. The Kraken would lose this one by a score of 1-2. The offensive generation fails. They only score the 1 goal by our player of the game for Oliver Bjorkstrand. 1 goal, 1 point, 2 shots, and 4 hits. It's a power play goal late into the game to tie things up. But the Kraken give up another one. They're unable to do anything late with the late push with the goalie pulled. And ultimately, they fall to the Capitals. So slowly throughout the week, even if you're the biggest of optimists for their playoff push, they crush your hope more and more. March 16th versus the Nashville Predators, the team that currently holds the first spot in the wild card race in the Western Conference. The Kraken will lose this one by a score of 1-2. Even with the line shaken up by head coach Dave Hagstall, the offense still struggles to generate much and to make it count. They do a little bit better in terms of how the game looked. The game was very sloppy against the Capitals. They looked a little bit better against Nashville. They tied things up, but they gave up another one. Not a 1-2 score. It was 1-4. Nashville was able to pull away. They got the empty net goal to make it more than it was, but just very frustrating. Our player of the game forward, Andre Burakovsky, 1 goal, 1 point, 3 shots, and 1 hit. He scores on the power play. Seattle can't do much throughout the course of the week to help their goalies. Philip Grubauer on the 12th and the 16th, and then Joey Decord on the 14th. So that's it, folks. They're cooked. The rest of the year, you're playing for pride and to keep folks interested. I know a lot of the season ticket deals end after 3 years. There's the 3-year packages, the 5-year packages, and the 7 years. The 3 years is up. A lot of folks are frustrated amongst a few other things, whether it's pricing, this and that. Frustrated after how this year has gone, and I don't blame them. Yes, a lot of injuries, but also a lot of them self-inflicted wounds. A lot of overtime games that they should have won. A lot of games that shouldn't have gone overtime. You're dealing with that. You're dealing with hopefully next year, if the Supersonics are announced or the NBA to expansion Seattle is announced, then you've got the NBA franchise coming here. And you might lose some interest from some fans, considering that the NBA schedule runs directly with the Kraken schedule and the NHL schedule. You're going to lose some interest there. You might lose some ticket sales as well. Yeah, I mean it's it's tough. It's very tough, just considering a lot of the different contexts, a lot of different circumstances. You know, if you look at free agency, I kind of doubt that the two big name forwards in Jake Gensel and Sam Reinhart leave their respective teams that they're with right now, and Gensel with the Canes and Reinhart with the Panthers. So if you're going to add an impact forward, a guy that's going to be able to score consistently, a guy that's going to be able to elevate you when you're in these offensive struggles, it's going to need to be via trade. Seattle's got the trade pieces. I mean, they've got 9 picks in this year's entry draft. You could move a guy like Brandon Tanev. I know you don't want to hear that, but if you're going to acquire more offensive skill, you got to move Tanev or someone like that. So it'll be interesting to see. There's not too much you can add offensive impact-wise in free agency. But yeah, now through the rest of the year, you don't have to worry about trying to make the playoffs. You look at pride and keeping fans interested and finishing out right. Not Shane Wright either. Let him continue to develop in Coachella Valley. Anyway, we look over here to the upcoming slate of games for the Kraken as they sit at a 28 win, 26 loss, 12 overtime loss record, which is good for 6th in the Pacific Division. 68 points on the year. They're 9 points out of the final wildcard spot, and it would need the biggest of miracles. I mean, if they find a way to get that last playoff spot, I will wear a wig for 3 straight episodes. Yes, Eric, 3 straight episodes. It's not going to happen. I'll put all crazy. I had a bet with Everett Fitzhugh that I would wear a wave cap if the Kraken made the playoffs, and I guess I get to get out of that. So, sorry, Everett. Maybe we'll push it to next year. We look to the next week in Kraken games. They play 4 this upcoming week, 2 of them at home, 2 of them on the road. It's a nice home and road sandwich here. March 18th versus the Buffalo Sabres. That's a 7 o'clock puck drop. That is on Root Sports. March 21st at the Las Vegas Golden Knights. The first of a back-to-back on the road is a 7:30 start. That game's on ESPN. Yes, 7:30, so we're pushing your bedtime here a little bit. March 22nd at the Arizona Coyotes at the infamous Mullet Arena is a 7 o'clock start. And then March 24th, returning home versus the Montreal Canadiens is a 6 o'clock start. The team will be wearing their Winter Classic jerseys once again on that Sunday. And because it's Sunday, that's why that game has a 6 o'clock puck drop. The giveaway for that game is a Winter Classic-themed ham flag. So end the homestand on the 18th, go on a little road trip, a back-to-back road trip down in the southwest part of the country, and then come back to begin another homestand on Sunday. We look up here to the OL Reign. Seattle Reign FC. Goodness, I've been really good about that. That's my first slip. Terrible. That's on me. Who played March 17th versus the Washington Spirit, and we'll throw it to myself for an update on that. Hello there, everybody. Charles Hamaker here with you from Circling Seattle Sports and Converge Media outside of Lumen Field. Following today's Reign FC, Seattle Reign FC, home opener and season opener for the 2024 NWSL season. The Reign win this one by a score of 1-0. Very exciting to beat Washington. I believe it was the 3rd or 4th time that they've faced the Spirit in a season opener, so I'm sure they're kind of sick of that. Bethany Balcer said as much in the post-match press conference. Washington was without star Trinity Rodman as she was dealing with red card accumulation suspension from last season that pushed over into this year. The Reign were able to, just 12 seconds into the match, draw a penalty as Jordan Heidema was fouled in the box. After some delay, as just Fishlock held onto the ball, Bethany Balser would take the penalty and score that one to put the Reign up by a score of 1-0 early. The Reign did have a few different dangerous chances throughout the course of that first half, including one from University of Washington alum and defender Shay Holmes. She had a nice play into the box after a pass from Jordan Heidema. Wasn't able to get it past Aubrey Kingsbury in net for the Washington Spirit. She said post-match that if it had been lower, she lifted a little too much, that she would probably have scored that. With the chances that the Reign generated, they really could have scored 3 or 4 goals in this one, in that first half alone, but they were unable to do so, which was unfortunate. They held on to that 1-goal lead for a long time. There was a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity. Free kick in the second half as Aubrey Kingsbury came just enough over the line. The Spirit had to take off Croy Bethune and bring on, I believe it was Bosselman. Liza Bosselman, their other goalkeeper, their secondary goalkeeper, and that one, the free kick from Ji So-yeon did not go. The second half was much slower paced in this one. But the Reign were able to pull things out despite 13 added on minutes past the 90th. They showed great defensive depth with Shay Holmes starting and Phoebe McClernand both as the center backs. Lily Woodham got her first individual start at the left back position. She looked strong there. Ji So-yeon was incredible on the ball, and it was really fun to watch her. If there were any questions about how she would adjust to NWSL play, there shouldn't be any more questions about that. And 17-year-old Emery Adames, who is the first U18 player that the Reign have ever signed, made her debut late into this match. And she looked good on the ball. Laura Harvey, post-match, was really excited about her. But so that is that. Really nice evening here at Lumen Field. It is beautiful. It is beautiful outside of here. So nice to bring it to you from outside of Lumen Field. But now I will throw it back to myself in the studio for that. So we go on from that match there to begin the MLS season. Nice to get there, at Lumen Field. The weather's nice here this weekend for the soccer teams, with the Sounders playing on the 16th and the Reign playing on the 17th. We do have a decent bit of team news to get through as the team solidified their roster for this year, and a few other different things got moved around and pushed around and took place. So March 13th, to begin all of that team news, the club signed Emery Adames. Adames signed the U18 forward to a multi-year deal through the 2027 NWSL season via the NWSL's U18 entry mechanism. Adames joins the Reign as their first ever U18 player signing in club history, becoming the longest contracted player on the Reign's active roster. The contract is a 3-year deal with a 1-year option. The option will be exercised in Adames' first regular season appearance. So there's something to look at. There's a fun fact for you to point out whenever that happens. The 17-year-old forward has been training with Seattle throughout the 2024 preseason as a non-roster invitee and was committed to the University of North Carolina before signing this contract. She spent her first 2 years of high school attending Wasahahi Life, where she played soccer and was named high school co-offensive MVP in 2021 as a freshman, after setting the school record for most goals scored in a season at 47. Goodness. The left-footed winger has also represented the United States at the international level, spending some time with the U14 through U19 teams for the U.S. Youth National Team. She most recently helped the U19 team win bronze at the 2023 Pan American Games, where she scored 3 goals and added 1 assist. She's a Dallas, Texas native, playing at the club level for Solar 06 ECNL, earning ECNL U16 All-American and ECNL U16 First Team All-Conference honors in the 2021-2022 season. We go over here the same day they signed draft pick Maddie Mercado. Mercado was the 27th overall pick in the 2024 NWSL draft. The midfielder out of the University of Notre Dame signed with Seattle after registering 62 starts and 94 appearances in her collegiate career with the Fighting Irish. She scored 26 goals and added 12 assists at Notre Dame, earning second-team All-ACC honors in 2023 and third-team All-ACC honors back in 22. She also was named to the All-ACC academic team 3 times. She's a West Coast girl, San Diego, California, a native of Cali. Has also played for the U.S. Women's Youth National Team between the U14 and U19 levels. She was named to the U19 team for the La Manga tournament in Spain in 2020 and was rostered on the U16 team that won the Torneo del Naziano in 2017. From there, with the signings of Adames and Mercado, we go straight into the club announcing their 2024 roster ahead of their season opener on the 17th. 26 players under contract for the season, in addition to the fact that defender Jimena Lopez and midfielder Loani are both on loan through the month of June. Among those 26 players, 18 of them do return to the club from last season. Both Lou Barnes and Jess Fishlock return for their 12th season with the Reign, making them 2 of 3 active players in the league to play for the same club every year since 2013. Seattle uses their 4 international slots among the active roster, with Jordan Huitema from Canada at the forward position, midfielder Angharad James, or her nickname Haz, from Wales, midfielder Ji So-yeon out of South Korea, and another Wales player, defender Lily Woodham. So, in addition to James, Ji, and Woodham, the club added draft selections Maddie Mercado, Sam Meza, Adames, defender Julia Lester, and forward Mackenzie Wynant to the roster. And from there, we will go to the position breakdown that you'll now see on your screen, starting with the goalkeepers. Claudia Dickey, who started most of last year after taking over for Fallon Tullis-Joyce and that whole saga, returns and likely remains your starter. Laurel Ivory will likely continue to back her up. And late season signee Maya Perez comes back on this roster. Defenders, Lou Barnes, as mentioned, Ryan Brown, Alana Cook. She, as we talked about with the Reign March 17th recap, she started this year out as she continues to work back with a leg injury. Shay Holmes, Sophia Huerta, Julia Lester, Jimena Lopez on loan, Phoebe McLaren, and Lily Woodham. Midfielders is the spot where the club has the most players, with 10, Olivia Athens, Jess Fishlock, Angharad James, Luani, Maddie Mercado, Sam Meza, Quinn, Ji So-yeon, Nikki Stanton, and Olivia van der Yacht. At the forward position, Emery Adames, Bethany Balser, Jordan Huitema, Ziara King, Veronica Latsko, who, as mentioned in, again, the Reign March 17 recap, was dealing with an injury and missed that match, and Mackenzie Weinert. Keeping with the team news, as again, there's a lot going on. March 14th, the Reign announced that they will be retiring Megan Rapinoe's number 15 jersey. The Reign announced its plan to retire club legend Megan Rapinoe's iconic number 15 jersey to honor her illustrious career with the team. The celebration itself will be held at Lumen Field during their match against the North Carolina Courage on Sunday, August 25th at 7 o'clock. Rapinoe is one of 3 players to wear the crest from the inaugural season in 2013 through the 2023 season, along with Lou Barnes and Jess Fishlock, of course, becoming the first player in Reign history to have their jersey number retired. Activations and celebrations surrounding that match and her jersey retirement will be announced at a later date. The next day, the Reign gave me no mercy this week. It was terrible. You guys kept me busy, kept me working. March 15th, the Reign announced its Players with Purpose ticket program, which allows fans to purchase tickets to the 2024 Reign FC home matches at Lumen Field, while also supporting nonprofits and community organizations selected by the Reign players that will be participating. There are 12 players participating. Beginning on the 15th, each Reign FC player involved amongst those 12 will have a unique ticketing link for fans to purchase tickets and support the organization of their choice. For every ticket purchased using that link, the Reign will donate $5 to that organization chosen by the Reign player. So there are 12 players doing this program and 10 different organizations that are represented. Bethany Balser chose The Hidden Opponent. Lou Barnes chose Football for Her. Jess Fishlock chose Lambert House. Shay Holmes chose MS Impossible. Sophia Huerta chose Hello Pity Rescue. Angharad James Turner chose the Washington State chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Ziara King also chose Lambert House. Veronica Latsko chose Agape Adoptions. Maddie Mercado chose Seattle Aquarium. Nikki Stanton chose Sammamish Animal Sanctuary. Olivia van der Yacht also joining. Shay Holmes chose MS Impossible. And then Lee Woodham chose Seattle Angels. Hey everybody, Charles Hamaker here with Circling Seattle Sports. You can see the old logo behind me. That's not the point. Anyway, it is just past midnight here in Seattle. We have some pretty important breaking news. So this is several hours past the Seattle Reign win over the Washington Spirit. You know, it was really excited to see the return of the Queen, you know, see the logo everywhere. And here at 12:05 a.m. Seattle time, we get the announcement from the Reign that OL Group announced today that an agreement had been reached with the group, including Seattle Sounders FC and global investment firm Carlyle, for the sale of the Seattle Reign. The transaction is expected to close in early 2024, which that's right now. And subject to approval by both the NWSL and MLS Board of Governors. More details will be made available upon closing of the sale. So, I mean, this has been rumored. There have been rumors that the Sounders are involved. Oh, there you go. You know, Adrian Hanauer was at the UW versus Reign friendly for the preseason. Megan Rapinoe, we saw her at Sounders training at Longacres. So, I mean, hasn't been a secret, but, you know, with the news of it potentially becoming official here, obviously that's very exciting. It'll be unique to see how this partnership grows, obviously. In the last few years, we've had the Seattle versus Portland doubleheaders. You know, both of the clubs have been very complimentary of each other throughout the years, supporting each other. The Reign were at the Sounders season opener. You know, the Sounders have shown their support for the Reign here and there. So it's going to be very unique to see how this all plays out. I don't imagine that the Sounders really want to put their branding on the Reign. They would like for the Reign to kind of operate as themselves. But obviously we'll get those details and see that in reality. But just wanted to come on here and talk about that quickly because I'm trying to get stuff ready for the day, for posting and stuff like that. And this happens. So pretty important news. You know, so many fans have been waiting for this, for the sale at all to become official. And, you know, in terms of the potential of who would buy at the club, this was kind of a fan favorite, and I'm glad to see it. I mean, it's cool. I think the Sounders are run pretty decently well. So for them to, you know, the two pro football clubs here in the city of Seattle, you know, the professional, not, you know, obviously there's USL League 2, USL Champion, whatever. It's cool to see them in that sort of tandem, and it'll be very cool to see how they sort of go forward with the sale. But yeah, so that's that. Wanted to come on here and do that. I apologize if I look like shit. So, wrapping that things up, you know, after the 17th game against the Washington Spirit to kick off the regular season for the Reign, and then all of that team news, there's a lot. Hope you're able to decompress and deal with all of that like I just did. The Reign will go on the road for their first time this season, Saturday, March 23rd at the Chicago Red Stars. That's a 1 p.m. start on NWSL Plus. So that will wrap things up for our Monday, March 18th, 2024 episode of Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. From Charles Hamaker, I hope you appreciated it. You know, we've got this nice weather this weekend. I know it's not supposed to continue that much, but it's nice to see the weather that we're looking forward to when we get to spring and when we get to summer, and all the beautiful days that we'll have, you know, for the matches that will be played outside with the Reign and the Sounders, the Mariners games that are coming up, you know, the Storm games, even though they're not played outside. It'd be cool to see an outdoor game in the WNBA. That would be cool. I know the NBA doesn't do it either, but, you know, at Climate Pledge Arena, hopefully open up the windows there, the terrace. It'll be great. Really looking forward to a busy spring and summer. I know I say busy, but I came into the studio tired today. Anyway, we'll wrap things up. Hope you're able to take care of yourselves. Have a good rest of your day. You know, and be the good that you want to see in this world. Had a great experience this past week with a young goaltender named Avery. Saw her at Kraken practice. Had a great interaction with her and her dad, Joe. I hope you guys take care of yourselves on your trip back to Alaska. I'm sorry the Kraken couldn't win for you in your 2 games here. And everyone else, again, be the good that you want to see in this world, and that you hope to inspire. Inspire the next generation, push it forward, and continue to be kind. Take care of yourselves, be well, and do whatever you can to make today a great day.